Frank Moris, the mind behind the impossible. The man behind the legend history remembers him as an escape artist, a ghost, a name etched into one of the greatest prison mysteries of the 20th century. But before the night he vanished from Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary, before the raft, before the dummy heads, before the fog swallowed him whole, Frank Lee Moris was a child, a boy born into instability, a boy who would spend more time behind bars than in freedom, and perhaps a boy who learned very early that survival meant thinking differently. Early life, a child without anchors. Frank Moris was born on September 1st, 1926. Little is known about his biological parents. Records suggest he was orphaned at a young age or abandoned early in childhood. He entered the foster care system, a world of temporary homes, of shifting guardians and emotional detachment. There were no stable roots, no long-term security, no consistent authority figure. By the time most children were forming attachments and identities, Frank was learning independence, but not the healthy kind. He learned detachment. He learned self-reliance. He learned that the world did not offer protection, only obstacles. Reports later indicated Moris possessed an exceptionally high IQ, estimated around 130 to 135. Highly intelligent, above average by significant margin. But intelligence without guidance can become something else. Instead of mentorship, he developed calculation. Instead of structure, he developed independence bordering on isolation. He became quiet, observant, reserved, not impulsive, not loud, but always watching. Now, the adolescence. The first crimes. At age 13, Moris was first arrested. The charge, petty theft, small crime, small sentence. But it marked the beginning of a pattern. Juvenile detention became familiar. Correctional facilities replaced classrooms. Authority figures became wardens. Each time he was released, he returned to crime. Why? Because prison, paradoxically, may have been the most stable environment he knew. 3 meals a day, clear rules, defined boundaries, predictable structure. Freedom required navigating chaos. Prison required following patterns, and patterns Moris could master. By age 20, he had been arrested multiple times. The crimes escalated: burglary, possession, armed robbery. He wasn't reckless. He wasn't violent for pleasure. He was methodical. Crimes were planned, calculated, executed quietly. He avoided confrontation when possible. His weapon was strategy. The psychology of control. Frank Moris did not fit the typical profile of a chaotic criminal. He wasn't driven by rage. He wasn't flamboyant. He didn't seek notoriety. He sought control. Control over environment, control over outcomes, control over systems that confined him. Psychologists reviewing his prison files later described him as highly intelligent, emotionally detached, disciplined, introverted, strategic. He wasn't a leader in the traditional sense, but he inspired trust through competence. He didn't talk big, he executed, and that made him dangerous to institutions, because institutions rely on predictability. Moris specialized in exploiting blind spots. The escape artist emerges before Alcatraz. Moris had already escaped from prison multiple times. In fact, he escaped from at least 2 federal institutions before 1960. Each time, he was captured. But each time, he demonstrated something important. He studied systems. He learned schedules. He identified weaknesses. He waited. Patience was his weapon. When he was finally transferred to Alcatraz in 1960, it was because officials believed only the most secure prison in America could contain him. Alcatraz was designed specifically for men like Moris, men who refused confinement, men who disrupted order, men who escaped. The irony is almost poetic. They sent their most intelligent escape artist to the one place that claimed escape was impossible. Arrival at Alcatraz. The challenge. Alcatraz was different. Isolation was total. Cells were small. Schedules rigid. Guards experienced. The water itself acted as a natural barrier. Cold, violent, unforgiving. Many inmates broke under its psychological weight, but Moris did not. He observed, he listened, he adapted. He befriended the Anglin brothers, John and Clarence, two inmates known for their discipline and work ethic. They shared something in common: patience. Together, they formed a quiet alliance. Not loud, not flashy, but deliberate. The mind at work. The ventilation grates in the cells were old. Concrete around them had weakened over decades. Most inmates ignored them. Moris did not. Where others saw steel, he saw erosion. Where others saw impossibility, he saw time. He began chipping at the concrete with a spoon stolen from the dining hall. Not aggressively, not hurriedly, but steadily. As a few minutes each night, dust hidden in pockets, discarded during yard time. No rush, no noise. He understood something vital. The most secure systems fail slowly. Not dramatically, slowly, over months. The raft idea was likely his. The dummy heads? Almost certainly his concept. The coordination of timing? That required intelligence and patience. Moris had both. Social behavior, loner or leader. Despite popular depictions, Moris was not charismatic. He did not command with charm. He influenced through competence. Prison records describe him as quiet, polite, non-confrontational. He did not instigate fights. He did not seek dominance. He did not gamble recklessly. He conserved energy. He conserved attention. He stayed invisible. And invisibility is power inside prison walls. To motivation. Why escape again? Here is the deeper question. Why risk everything again? Why attempt escape from the most infamous prison in America? The answer likely lies in identity. Frank Moris defined himself through mastery over confinement. Each prison that held him became a puzzle. And puzzles exist to be solved. Alcatraz wasn't just confinement. It was a challenge. A declaration by the federal government that some men cannot win. For a man like Moris, that declaration was irresistible. It wasn't just about freedom. It was about proving superiority over the system. Not through violence, not through chaos, but through intellect. After the escape, the void. After June 11, 1962, Frank Moris disappears from verified history. No confirmed sightings. No confirmed fingerprints. No body. If he survived the bay, he would have been 35 years old at the time of escape, young enough to rebuild, smart enough to disappear. If he drowned, the water erased him completely. The absence of remains leaves space for myth. And myth is powerful. The legacy of Frank Moris. Frank Moris is not remembered for violence. He is remembered for ingenuity, for patience, for planning, for the audacity to challenge an institution that claimed perfection. His life raises uncomfortable questions. Was he a criminal product of instability? A genius without guidance? A symbol of institutional failure? or simply a man who refused to accept confinement. His biography is not one of glamour. It is one of detachment, instability, repetition, and relentless calculation. He lived most of his life inside walls, but he may have escaped the final one. Final reflection. When people visit Alcatraz today, they stare at cell 138. They look at the vent hole. They see a replica dummy head, and they imagine the mind that conceived it. A foster child turned habitual offender, a high IQ drifter through institutions, a quiet strategist, a man who may have died in icy waters, or may have stood on distant soil, breathing free air under a different name. Frank Moris did not leave behind wealth, or speeches, or memoirs. He left behind a question. And sometimes, a question is more powerful than an answer.